Welcome everyone to the Intro to Meetup. Today is December the 3rd, 2015, and tonight's topic is Bitcoin. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the SVAD for providing us this meeting space and WBT Productions for filming this presentation. My name is Alex Souza, and I'm a technology attorney. I cover everything from patents, prosecution to commercial transactions. If you have any legal questions or are interested in saving some money, go ahead and send me an email, attorney@pobox.com. That's ATTORNEY at pobox.com. And with that, let's get started with the presentation. Bitcoin Explained. Before we talk about Bitcoin, let's talk about money. What is money? There are basically three types of money. There's commodity money, which is money that gets its value from the underlying commodity. Think of a gold coin. There's fiat currency. That's currency that a government has declared to be legal tender, but is not backed by any physical commodity. You can think the dollar bills in your wallet or the money you have in the bank account when you check it online. Then there's this thing called cryptocurrency. It's currency that is not used by any central authority, rendering it theoretically immune to government interference or manipulation. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency implemented entirely with open source specifications and software, which relies entirely on a peer-to-peer, that is decentralized, network for both transaction processing and validation. Who invented Bitcoin? Bitcoin was invented by Satoshi Nakamoto, who published the invention in 2008 in a research paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It was later implemented as open source in 2009. Bitcoin is often called the first cryptocurrency, although it's more correctly described as the first decentralized digital currency. It has not been confirmed if Nakamoto is a real person. For all we know, it could be a pseudonym for a group of people. Nobody knows. So how big is Bitcoin? For sure, it's growing. Here's a chart I have of transactions between 2009 and 2014. And as you can see, it's going up and to the left, and the transactions are roughly between, these are daily transactions, maybe 100,000 to 70,000 transactions per day. And that's increasing even more. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer system. So when Alice wants to pay Bob, she broadcasts the transaction to all Bitcoin nodes. So what's a Bitcoin node? A Bitcoin node is a computer or a set of computers that validate transactions and blocks, called mining, and then relay that information to other full nodes. To be clear, a group of transactions is called a block. So you have a transaction or a block, which is a set of transactions. Any individual can run a full node by using the core client, that is the Bitcoin core. So if anyone's interested in the audience, feel free to download the application and install it, and you could become a node yourself. So let's talk about Bitcoin in operation. New transactions are broadcast to all nodes, where they are collected into a block, which includes a hash that is a link to the preceding valid block. Each node then competes to be the first to complete a proof of work on all the data in the block, in order to have it accepted by the other participants and thus be awarded a payment, currently 25 Bitcoins. The only way to generate new Bitcoins in the system is through what is called mining, that is, doing the proof of work. Other nodes express their acceptance of the block, that is, achieve consensus, by working on creating the next block in the chain using the hash link of the accepted block as the previous hash. So it's all about consensus. So everybody competes to create the block, to validate the block with a proof of work, and then the block moves forward, the chain moves forward, and they start doing the next block. Now initially, there's going to be several block chains moving forward. Eventually, one dominates, and that becomes, in essence, the block that everyone proceeds on. A hash. So what's a hash? I mean, the computer guys know what a hash is, but a hash is any function that can be used to map data of an arbitrary size to a data of fixed size. Now, because in Bitcoin hashes are always unique, they are used as pointers to the previous blocks, creating the blockchain. That's why they call it blockchain, because you have a block, a set of transactions, and in that block you have a link to the previous block in the chain. And anyone in Bitcoin can follow the blocks all the way back to the very original one generated in 2009. You can go all the way back in time. That ensures the integrity of the system. Okay, proof of work. Have you guys ever heard of a proof of work? What this means? Okay, the proof of work is critical to Bitcoin. A proof of work is, in general, proof of work is an economic measure to deter denial of service, attacks, and other service abuses such as spam on a network by requiring some work from the service requester, usually meaning processing time by a computer. Basically, if somebody wants to attack you, you make them do a little work to disincentivize them from attacking you because it costs them something. That's the whole purpose of a proof of work. There is some cost to do the transaction. For Bitcoin, it's a piece of data which is difficult, that is costly and time-consuming to produce, but easy for others to verify, which satisfies certain requirements. This is what ensures the integrity of the Bitcoin system. Because the proof of work includes all data in the block, tampering with any data, including the hash of the previous valid block, invalidates the block, precluding double spending of funds. So that's what keeps the system reliable. So let's say that you were nefarious and you were running a node and you wanted to hack into the block to create, to point it to another blockchain. Maybe you wanted to, again, double spend funds. You want to pay somebody 25 Bitcoins, you want to pay somebody else the same 25 Bitcoins. The second you start messing around with the block becomes invalidated. The difficulty of the proof of work is adjusted so as to limit the rate at which new blocks can be generated by the network to 1 every 10 minutes. So if it starts getting too hard, the proof of work becomes easier. If it starts getting too easy, the proof of work becomes harder. And this ensures stability of the system. So this is interesting. Mining uncertainty. The proof of work, in essence, when you do a proof of work, you're guessing. You're just guessing. The only way to do it is to keep guessing. And there's a probability of hitting it and a probability of not hitting it. That's the whole concept of it. Now, here's an example. Assume you have one computer in a node. After 14 months, your chance of getting 0 hits is 42%. Your chance of getting 1 hit, that means getting one proof of work right, is 36%. 2, 15, close to 16%. 3 or more, less than 6%. That means it's really hard to find the proof of work because all you're doing is guessing, 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 and guessing. But if you succeed, currently you get 25 Bitcoins as a reward for your effort. It's the 25 Bitcoins that ensures there are people who do mining, who do the verification. They have to be, in essence, paid for the service. And this is how they make money. Okay, so let's go through a simplified transaction to show it in purpose. Now, okay, there's only one transaction per block, which is not the case. Obviously, blocks have multiple transactions. So let's just step through it, like a real simple example. Let's say that you're Alice. And by the way, if you've ever done cryptography or anything, it's always Alex, Alice, Bob, Carol.
Ted and Alice.
Ted, yeah, they're not very, they're really smart guys, but they're not very creative. It's always the same. Okay, so let's say Alice. Let's say Alice is a miner, meaning she's one of these people who does the proof of work. She does the proof of work. So she did a proof of work, and she got 25 Bitcoins, which is the current payment. The system will give her 25 Bitcoins. So in the first block, there are 0 inputs. She didn't get them from anybody. They were generated. And there's 25 output. So now the block has 25 Bitcoins given to Alice. Now, by the way, the blockchain is visible to everybody in the world. Now, it may not say Alice. It'll say some encrypted number, but it's Alice. And anybody can verify that, yes, this person got this many Bitcoins. OK, second block. Now, the second block, right, points to the first block, see? So it's linking to the first block. And in the second block, Alice wants to give 17 Bitcoins to Bob. And keep 8. And 17 plus 8 is?
25.
OK, got the advanced class. Yes, 25. OK? So now the chain is being formed. Now the world knows that Alice now has only 8 Bitcoins and Bob has 17 Bitcoins. Right? You guys following? OK. Third block. OK? Third block points to the second. You see how it's linked? So I know what the previous block was. And in this one, Bob, and how many coins did Bob get before? 17. Bob, right, gives 8 to Carol and keeps 9. 8 plus 9 is?
17.
Oh, you guys are catching on, right? So now the world knows that Bob no longer has 17 Bitcoins. He only has 9 Bitcoins left. And the world can see it.
So what happened with the original 25? When did it disappear?
It didn't disappear. It just got distributed out.
Okay. Yeah, 17. Right.
Now, in the fourth one, and this one also, right, goes to block 2, right? Now, Alice, right, gives 6 of her Bitcoins to David and keeps 2. So how many? So what is right? So now the world knows how many Bitcoins Alice has left. So if Alice at this point tried to send somebody 4 Bitcoins, the system would say, wait a minute, you only have 2. And if Alice tried to tamper with the block to change it from a 2 to a 4, the whole block would be invalidated. Is that making sense? So basically, it works because everyone's competing to create these chains. And a block is validated roughly once every 10 minutes. So it's kind of frothy when everyone's competing to see who's first. But eventually, one of the chains becomes the longest chain, and then everyone jumps on that chain. And then that becomes the master again. So it kind of spreads out, and it keeps converging. So even if you solve the chain, if no one else jumps on behind you, yeah, you got 25 Bitcoins in your chain, but no one's going to care because that's not the master chain in essence. That's not the principal chain. It's only if it becomes the chain that everyone converges to that you can actually spend it. Which is why you normally can't spend it like in a minute later. You normally wait an hour or something. You wait till a chain becomes dominant, then you can start spending the Bitcoin. And that's why they call it blockchain, because everything's blocked all the way back to the original block. Now here is this should make all the programmers in the audience give them a warm feeling. Here is an example of a Bitcoin transaction in a JSON kind of format. They get pretty nasty. There's a lot of information in there, but it's just what I did before with just some extra information. It's the same idea. You have the blocks, it gets generated. Everything is public. If you download the Bitcoin software, you can see every transaction everyone's made. It takes a couple of hours to download, I've been told, but you can see everything. Everything's out in the open. That's the whole point. Trust no one. Everything's in the open. Buying and selling a Bitcoin. That was the question. Okay. How can you buy and sell a Bitcoin? By direct trade with another person. An intermediary facilitating the connection. Examples are Coinbase, Local Bitcoins, BitBargain, Bitalicious. So I sell it to you. This intermediary maybe takes a little cut to do the transaction. They're like a market, a buyer and a seller meet. Through an online exchange where a trade is with the exchange rather than the individual. Mt. Gox, you guys heard of Mt. Gox before it went bankrupt. Cycle, Kraken, Bitstamp. Or through peer-to-peer trading marketplaces that allow Bitcoin owners to obtain discounted goods with their Bitcoin by others that want to obtain the cryptocurrency with credit debit cards. Bitcoin Shop, BTR, Corner, and Cryptsy. They're really easy. You can just sign up, and then you have an account, and you can start trading Bitcoins. They make it very easy for you. Okay, there is a finite supply of Bitcoins in the system, 21 million. That's it. Now you can say, well, what happens? Well, I mean, Bitcoins can be denominated, I think, up to like 8 digits and something. So there's enough granularity to account for, very expensive Bitcoins. But there is a limit, and the limit also hits on, the other interesting thing is the limit is also a limit for the miners. So eventually the miners are not going to get 25 Bitcoins per transaction. Eventually they're going to have to be paid. And there's something in the system that allows them to take a piece of the transaction, as a processing fee. Because if they're not going to get paid, they're not going to do it, and the whole system's not going to work. There has to be some profit incentive for these people to validate the blockchain. Okay, so what are the Bitcoin issues? I think there are 4 Bitcoin issues. Bad actors, centralization, reactionary regulation, and volatility. Okay, bad actors. Although Bitcoin solved the double spending issue, it did not address mistakes, theft, fraud, and other illegal activities. Since 2009, there have been more than 35 Bitcoin scams and thefts. Mt. Gox, did you hear about this? You guys heard about Mt. Gox? This is an exchange in Japan. They lost like $430 million. Poof, gone. What happened to it? Neo and B is another one, MyCoin. So, it's nothing wrong with Bitcoin itself, they're just bad people. Here's a real picture from Mt. Gox. These guys got their money stolen and they were camping out Mt. Gox headquarters in Japan. I'm not sure if he went to jail yet. I know he was being tried. Silk Road. Who has heard of Silk Road?
Yeah.
Silk Road, anybody? Want to buy your pot? Silk Road is the eBay for drugs and anything else you want.
Did you go to jail tonight?
They caught him. They caught the guy. And supposedly the story was they kind of knew who he was, and but they need to catch him. So they went. He was at a Starbucks, I think, or a restaurant, and he had his laptop open. And supposedly, if he closed his laptop, it would secure the, would encrypt it. It would do the password. So he was working, and his woman came up to him and said something like, "You're cheating on me," or some woman thing. And he went back, and then they grabbed the laptop before he got to close it. And they got him that way. But the irony is, on paper, he made a lot of money. I mean, he like millions of dollars. But he could never use it because the second he converted it from Bitcoin to real currency, to this fiat currency, he stops becoming anonymous. So that's the trouble with the anonymity. You can stay in the anonymous world, but eventually you want to do something in the physical world. And the second you cross over, now you're visible. That's the big problem. Okay, another concern with Bitcoin is centralization. Bitcoin is designed as a peer-to-peer decentralized network for both transaction processing and validation. However, there is little incentive to run a node anymore because powerful, expensive computers specifically designed for generating the proof of work limit mining only to the very few who can afford it. Now, okay, initially when it came out, you'd run it on a computer, on a Dell, right? But everyone's competing, proof of work, competing, right? So people then said, let's get GPUs together, graphical processing units, like from NVIDIA, right? Churn them out. We can start churning out. That wasn't fast enough. Got to compete. Got to make money. FPGA, field programmable grid arrays. Got to make them faster. Optimized for proof of work. And again, the proof of work is only guessing. All it's doing is guessing. Got to be, speed is everything. Now that isn't fast enough. ASICs. Now people are developing custom ASICs to do the proof of work, which means that it's kind of hard to compete. There's no more mom and pop miners anymore. Miners are like data centers. And it costs a lot of electricity too to run these things. So at some point, it doesn't make sense to mine anymore with the economics. Another issue is reactionary regulation. So according to the CoinDesk 2014 Q1 State of Bitcoin report, 12% of the 73 countries have taken some regulatory action on Bitcoin. They don't trust it. And there's a lot of examples. You know, the commodities, CFTC, that's commodity futures trade. They said that if you give anybody advice on Bitcoin, that's regulated, or you do anything related to commodities on Bitcoin. Like if you have a contract related to Bitcoin, that's regulated. Mexico payment restrictions now cover Bitcoin. European Banking Federation recommends Bitcoin regulation. You know, Australia is regulating Bitcoin. You know, these governments do not like Bitcoin. I mean, they're concerned. And a lot of it is not nefarious, it's just that they want to have control of the currency. I mean, I think countries want to have control of their currency. And Bitcoin, by design, is not controlled by anyone. So they're putting in controls. Tax avoidance, you know, like what was mentioned before, that's an issue. You know, nefarious things, monies to terrorists, you know, that's another issue. Or even just currency control. People, you know, think about it. There could be a run on the banks, and the money can leave the country in the Bitcoin system. You know, and the government can't control it. Or they can, or individuals can get around moving the $10,000, which is the limit, $10,000 currency limit, you know, to move money around the world. So there are legitimate reasons for control. But the trouble is that Bitcoin was decentralized by design. So there's friction between the government wanting control and the people using Bitcoin who don't. And that still has to be sorted out. You know, and the last point is volatility. You know, Bitcoin, currently people treat Bitcoin like a stock, or maybe an option, you know, that really fluctuates very volatile, fluctuates. But if it's a currency used in commerce, you can't have that kind of volatility. Imagine, you know, you want to buy a computer and today is $1,000 and tomorrow it's $500. What kind of commerce is that? It doesn't work as a commerce vehicle. It works as a speculation vehicle. So in order to be used in commerce, it has to be relatively stable. And right now, Bitcoin is fluctuating a lot. And people hoard it, you know, wait for the price to go up, try to sell, or buy in the lower. They're playing with it like options. And options are great and they serve a purpose, but options are generally, you don't buy a car with options. Okay, that is my Bitcoin presentation.